So one of the things that Enlisted has been doing these past few months and days and whatnot is that they're giving us old squads. And in this case, Enlisted has given us two of the oldest squads in game. These are going to be the WZ-1928 BAR for the Germans and the Showshot for the Soviet Union. Both of these are some of the oldest squads in game. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about the best of these squads. As a matter of fact, this is not only the best squad for these out of these two, but this is also the best squad in the game. Well, when the game came out, and is almost currently the best squad that is an LMG squad in game. And without further ado, let's get started with the best LMG squad in Enlisted, and that is the WZ-1928. No, seriously guys, I'm not going to say the Showshot. Of course, in this video, we're going to be covering the history, the stats, the weapons, and of course, what I think you should do with this squad, and of course, the perks. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting with the history, the 331st Infantry Division was formed on December 15th, 1941, as part of the 17th wave of deployment and recruitment. It was initially comprised of 7 infantry battalions, including the infantry regiments 557th, 558th, and 559th. In early 1942, the division marched into the Eastern Front, joining Army Group Center, entering combat during the Soviet Winter Offensive in 1942. The 331st suffered heavy casualties, and by early 1943, the division was reassigned to Velish area. Despite some reorganization of the unit, the division suffered serious attrition, and after the Nivelle sector crisis by late 1943, the 331st Infantry Division was dissolved on December 30th of 1943. The division was then reactivated in March 16th of 1944, and then it literally fielded once again 3 regiments. This time, these were called the Grenadier Regiments. These include the 557th, the 558th, 559th, and an artillery regiment. In April of 1944, the division was deployed onto German-occupied France and inside the Calais region. After the Allied landings in Normandy, the division participated in the battles around the Falaise Pocket. In August 1944, it suffered even more heavy losses during the retreat of the Falaise Pocket, and it was the last division to cross the Saône River in August of 1944. Subsequently, the division was then dissolved in October 7, 1944, and it pretty much ceased to exist. The remainder were sent to as headquarters divisions in Army Group H, and by the end of the war, it was, well, essentially ceasing to exist. In terms of the weapons, the WZ-1928 is a Polish weapon. After Poland gained independence in 1918, the army inherited a mix of machine guns from the British and French forces. To address this, Poland decided to do a competition in 1922 to select a standard light machine gun. After the initial test in 1924, the BAR, the American Browning Automatic Rifle, stood out. It was then modified, and in 1925, a modified version of the Belgian FN BAR was chosen. The modifications adapted to the Polish 7.92 by 57 Mauser, adding a bipod, lengthening the barrel, redesigning the grip, and foregrip. Poland then ordered about 10,000 of these from FN and secured a production license. However, production in Poland was then delayed until 1930 due to flaws in licensing documents. By 1939, about 14,000 of these weapons were officially named 7.92 MMRKM, running WZ-1928. It was produced and went further improvements, but plans for the replacement barrels were then disrupted by World War II. The WZ-1928 became the standard light machine gun for the Polish infantry and cavalry during the German and Soviet invasion of Poland in 1939. Captured units were used by the German forces as the IMG-28P, P for Poland, and by the Red Army during the war. So technically, in-game, this is called correctly the WZ-1928. But for the Germans, it's supposed to be called the IMG-28P. So that's that. In terms of the stats, the Browning WZ-1928 is a modification of the BAR, meaning that the caliber is 7.92 and a hit power of 13.2, which is actually pretty good. Muzzle velocity is 750, rate of fire 660, which is actually alright at this tier, which is tier 3. The shot deviation is 35, which is actually the lowest in terms of the stats, so this is one of the best in terms of shot deviation. The recoil is once again the lowest at 10%. Vertical is heavily controllable at 34, and horizontal is 11, which is once again very, very good. And of course, this is a 20-round magazine, much like the BAR, and it can go automatic and semi-automatic. In terms of the perks, I highly suggest that you guys get Vitality, plus 75% managed pack usage speed, minus 40% recoil, and whatever you have left, either put it in sprint, run speed, or essentially weapon reload, which is actually pretty good if you ask me. That said, let's move on to the verdict. In terms of the verdict, in stats, just in pure stats, this is the best LMG, and I'm saying as an LMG because it's an LMG of 20 rounds, so that's that. It is the best BAR in-game, and is one of the oldest squads in-game. I think this thing is one of the most accurate things in-game, and in some cases, for me personally, it's too accurate, because, well, if you go into a room, you actually want some spread, but that's just my personal opinion. 20 rounds is not good for fighting a lot of people, it's fighting for small groups, but the quick reload rate is pretty much insane. The reload rate is 2.1, which is actually very, very quick. The recoil is highly controllable. At this matter of fact, I would say this thing is a ray gun. So that's that. There is nothing negative about this weapon except for the fact that there is only 20 rounds. So that's that once again. There is nothing negative in terms of stats. Once again, this is the best LMG in pure stats. Upon the best stats and in-game, with the enlisted buffs to the premiums, which for this squad specifically means an engineer and an AT gunner, means that you can not only take out tanks, but you can build rallies, which is some of the most insane stuff you can do. So once again, a very good get. And to top of all that, you have this at tier 3. Meaning for the Germans, you have the best setup, the best weapon, the WZ-1928, and the best, well, equipment for the squads. You can have rallies, you can have anti-tank ability, and you will be fighting mostly against people in our tier 2, which is insanely good. So once again, this thing is already insane plus insanely good. Overall, this thing is a must get if you have the gold, of course. If you don't, well, honestly, there's a lot of things that the Germans can do at tier 3. But overall, this gun is insane. There is nothing wrong. You can do nothing wrong. It is highly recommended. As a matter of fact, if you want a cool fact, the pants on these units, officially they're German Stichtarren, which is essentially line camo, and is actually used by the GDR or DDR and the NVA, the Nationale Volksarmee, during the Cold War, and it's pretty interesting in terms of the camo itself. But in terms of the camo, they look great. They are some of the best squads in game, and honestly, I highly suggest that you get them. So without further ado, this is all it for the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.